Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fed Up. Joining me today is Daniel from the German band Tomb of Giants. How is it going today, man?
Oh, it's going great. I'm just starting my vacation, and we are here today to talk a bit our new album Legacy of the Sword, which it does focus actually. So yeah, we are a heavy metal band from Germany. I think it's more like northwest Germany, and yeah, we do very traditional heavy metal like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden in the early 80 years. While we are still pretty young, but we support that good old
Yeah,
stuff, and very
yeah.
happy to be here.
Oh no, no, you're very welcome, man. Well, that's good to hear. If you're doing anything for that genuine love of it and the passion, that's all you need. It doesn't matter if it's from I don't know. You could be something resurrecting it from I don't know the one of the Egyptian eras. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I've gone really random. Um, but I noticed that as well with the cover for Legacy of the Sword. It's got that nice fantasy mix with traditional heavy metal. You've got the sword,
Yeah.
the lettering in stone, Tomb of Giants. You see like an entranceway into that tomb. So that again, it's got all of those classic metal feels mixed with fantasy. I always like to focus in on the artwork as well as the music. So I'm just curious who put that together for you because it's
Yeah.
very nice.
It was actually a pretty local guy from Bielefeld, which
Very,
is just a little bit south from us. He's named Timon Kokot, and he does a lot of underground artworks, and I think he even does stuff worldwide on a commission. And he's just great. You tell him what your rough idea is, and he comes up with crazy stuff which just fits your imagination, and
yeah,
it's just worked great with him. It is pretty easy to work with him, and as you can see for yourself, the artwork turned out really great. He actually designed the logo for us in I think it was 2020 when we decided that we want to move on from our old logo, which was like this bones stuff, which a
yeah.
friend of mine put together just when I was leaving school, and yeah, we just said to ourselves that we have to get something new, which is actually this stone Tomb of Giants thing, which is in the center of the artwork. And then when we had finished recording the album, our budget was pretty small, so we had to get
Mm.
a cover artwork done for like a small budget. And so we said, well, let's just put a fucking sword into the logo and just see where we go from there. And Timon came up with this forest around it, and it's just great.
Yeah, I loved it, man. I mean, being a fan of fantasy, which I think it just flows so well with, well, I think it flows so well with metal in general, but especially traditional heavy metal and power metal as well. It just seems that they're absolutely built for each other. And I liked how, right at the bottom, if you look closely, you can see, there's a person there with the torch, like he's going to go into this tomb, a crypt to search for something. Um, Again, it's got that very kind of mix of Celtic Viking feels, bit of Conan the Barbarian in there. Yeah, I'm a colossal nerd, man. So it
Yeah,
hit all the right spots for me. And it's particularly telling, I think, for the album because the first song, the title song, Legacy of the Sword, and you've got the opening line
yeah,
there, Viking ships on horizon are sailing straight to our coast. Well, again, it's got those feels, it's got that essence that immediately, grabs you. So I'm curious, have you always all been interested in the Vikings and fantasy as well?
yeah. So actually, I'm just the bassist and producer. So I did record all the stuff, but I didn't come
Yeah.
up with the lyrics and the music. Those were written by Oliver, our guitarist, and yeah, I think he's interested in those stuff.
Yeah.
We do go to some medieval markets which are around here, so everybody
Ooh.
dresses up like you're in the 1500s or stuff, and that's pretty interesting actually. And I think that some inspiration may come from there. He also enjoys video games like most people do,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think they played a lot of Skyrim if I remember correctly. I'm not really into those games, but
Yeah.
I think that a lot of inspiration can come from there. Actually, our band name Tomb of Giants is inspired by, I think it was Dark Souls, but I'm not that sure.
Ooh.
And yeah, so it may very well be, but yeah, I think mostly the lyrics are just there to fulfill some cliches because we
Yeah.
try to be that. I
Hey,
guess
it
you
works
touched with the
though.
logo. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I think some purists really like it that our logo is so cliche like, and our songs really touch all those. Oh,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about war and have music that really pounds there. And I think that's something that we try to do with the music. But actually, the lyrics are just mostly just an aftermath. He told me because he comes up with the songs and then he yeah, just when we're ready with the songs, we can talk about that a bit later. He just goes on and says, "Okay, we need lyrics. How about this?" And it mostly works.
Yeah. Hey man, if it works, it's certainly got that high energy, fun feel in the music. It's got that good atmosphere. I feel it's very faithful to classic metal as well. And it's catchy. If it's got that high energy, it's got that beat, that bass line, that riff, the drums as well, and then the vocals, and it's got the chemistry which I can hear in on the album, then that pulls in the listener. If it doesn't have that, it can feel disjointed, a little cluttered. My impression after I listened through it a few times was that it it had that fun feel as well. Yes, if you like the cliche moments, but hey man, it's escapism. It's fun.
Yeah,
We could argue that with some death and black metal bands that are always, going about the underworld, hell, and all of that. And sometimes, I must admit, sometimes I do think, oh, come on, man, not. There is other things we could hear for once, But then again, they could say, to us, well, what about with your fantasy themes or in hardcore and punk, you're always in politics.
yeah.
It's I think as the music's good, and then everything else is just a bonus if it fits. That's what you've got waiting for, really. Just my little tangent.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we try to narrow our like our scope of content down a bit
Yeah.
because on our previous album, which came out in 2017, and we did a remix and remaster in I think it was 2011 or 22, somewhere around then. We weren't really decided on which genre we want to delve in. It was like some more like hard rock songs, heavy metal, a bit more speed metal, a bit power metal, and we play some of those songs until today, and we really like them. But they're spread more broadly than this album is, and the same goes for the lyrics. So some of the songs are like traveling through time or bomber flyings and stuff, and so it's not bad that it's broad. It's
Yeah.
mixes up stuff, but I think for an album, it's cool if you have something that's like has a little bit of a concept. It doesn't have to be like the songs have to be in the correct order, and it has to tell a story. But I think it's better if it's like not that hardly mixed together.
Yeah, totally. There's some coherence there as well, and sometimes, I mean, I'm all for taking very influences from a wide area as possible. That's great. But sometimes I think it depends on the music you make and what concept you have in mind, because sometimes you can go too wide and then make it more difficult for yourself. And then even if the music's played well, like I said, it can sound cluttered, not really structured, and I mean, quite hard to follow. A bit like my questions sometimes. But anyway, there's a point in there somewhere.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll find it. But yeah, so and I think, as you were saying, having that vision in mind, this is what we're going to do on this album. We are going to touch in some other areas or different styles on some of the songs, but it's going to generally be kind of fit this area. The music's going to flow in, the essence of this style is going to be in most of the songs. And yeah, that's it stops it from being too cluttered, as I said, and it's easier for the listener to follow. And I'd imagine when you've got that plan in mind, it's probably easier to play as well. I know music, this is something we can get into. It can manifest naturally, and there's certainly an argument that can be the best way if it comes from within what you're naturally feeling and playing, and then can do the writing later. And there was a point to this that seems to have now disappeared. I think I was touching on, it was referring to sometimes keeping on the path. Not always going off the path as I just did. So there was an example of not what to do. But I'm curious, how did you get hooked up with Marcus from Metal Message? Did he come across you at a show, or was he just searching around for some new bands to sign?
Yeah, I think it was actually like he looked for bands and we looked for a promoter, and then we just met magically. Actually, we as a band, you usually get like spam emails from various promoters every few days. Like the usual people it's always the same ones who tell you, yeah, okay, we'll do like $200 a month, and we'll do that and that, and it seems sketchy from the get-go, I'd say. And then I said, okay, we have to get a promoter because we cannot. The thing is, we sent out our CDs to different magazines, but we didn't really get a reply from anyone, and we didn't really get reviews other from the magazines that we really knew personally, which were like a handful. This didn't get us that far, so we decided, okay, we need someone who knows people and who can get people to review our stuff or do interviews with us, because as a band alone, and we all have daytime working jobs, so we have limited time to do stuff. Just cannot do that. So I then searched around with Google, and I found Marcus, and actually 2 hours later he found us and messaged us, and he was like, hey, I really like your music, would you like to work with me? And I was, hey, I just found your website an hour ago, let's have a call. And of course we were skeptical at first, because we didn't know him at all, and we just paid him upfront, and we didn't know if we would get anything for our money. We just had trust in him that it would work out, and I can only say he's a very good promoter, and we've been satisfied 10 times what we expected. So
he's one. I'm like you, the same. I get hit up by many PR companies, hundreds of emails a day, and Marcus used to send me promos for my old radio shows with some of the other PR companies. That's how I know them. And you are right. It's still taking a lottery with people. The same when you're doing this interviews, you're thinking, well, are the band going to turn up? Will they arrive? And that can be frustrating, because if they don't, you think, oh man, if I'd known beforehand, I could have scheduled somebody else in as replacement. There's nothing worse than it happens last minute, and then you can't do that. And especially when money's concerned, because there's so many scam artists. Give me $300, whatever. I'll run a 6-week campaign. I'll get you airplay on various radio stations, interviews with webzines, magazines, and so on. And then these people disappear. So definitely got to be careful. And it's still taking a chance to an extent, because you still wonder, well, are they going to deliver on what they are? But thankfully, there is still good people out there that you can take on the word, that will treat everybody the same, regardless of whether it's a huge famous band or someone at the bottom. Everybody deserves to be respected. That's a funny and nice meeting as well. It's almost as if it was meant to be, the time and that chemistry. You've found them an hour at 60 minutes ago, and sometimes this has come up a lot on the shows. Lighting effects. it can just be the case of right timing for writing, playing, forming, meeting people, all of that stuff as well. So with that said, regarding promotions and PR companies, if somebody is just starting out in a band, what advice would you give them as for looking for promotions? Make sure that they're obviously reliable and trustworthy. I know I was saying you've still got to take a bit of a chance, but maybe do a bit of research on them.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research actually. So
Yeah,
there's not that much agency out there who have like websites that tell you everything about them and don't look that sketchy.
yeah,
Maybe it's because I'm a web developer myself and I build websites that look good and are not sketchy.
yeah,
So actually, I'm maybe I'm a little biased there, but yeah, I really didn't find that much good agencies, and those that I found that looked good looked so that they would be extremely expensive and very hardly out of a budget,
yeah,
because that's the thing with a hobby band like we are, or like semi-professional if you want. It's just we cannot spend thousands of euros into
yeah,
promotion, because like doing an album costs like already 4 to 6 thousand euros if you do it on the cheap, and so we were pretty burnt down and we had to get promotion, but we really had a tight budget, like with the album cover. So yeah, I'd say to get back to the point for others starting out, I'd say you don't really need promotion until you have an album that is about to come out. I'd say the best time to start promoting an album is like 6 weeks before it's scheduled to release, and get in touch with a promoter like a few weeks before, because you have to like schedule with them and see if it works out and stuff. And I'd say our campaign would have been a lot better if we had talked to promoters earlier, because
yeah,
we only started out with Marcus like a month after our album was released. And usually with magazines, it's like you have to send your album like exactly when it comes out, or even better, a few weeks before. And if your album is a month old, they don't even care anymore, mostly, because they have to. And it's
yeah,
completely okay that they do it, because they have to talk about new stuff and not stuff that's old, because otherwise the readers will just go like, that's old shit, I don't care. Because that's the thing that is with the whole social media thing today. Like, if it's 5 minutes old, it's obsolete,
yeah.
basically.
They got the attention span of,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And I mean, with me, it's the same actually. I'm death scrolling on Instagram every evening, and like, yeah, it's just the attention span gets shorter, and if stuff isn't fresh out of the box, it just isn't that interesting anymore to people.
yeah.
Yeah, so
It's quite sad that, and it's also sad effect to think how the problem like social media and a negative side has had on society, where they've kind of got a memory span going back 5 minutes. And yes, I that hits me sometimes live on air when I forget the names of something. But hey, that can happen. Um, Strange. It's absolutely really sunny as well, and it's just going a little. uh, The room seems to be dark. Anyway, it must be
sunny on
those
your end.
yeah, yeah. It must be those UFOs I was talking about. Off
Yeah.
maybe one's hovering nearby. I heard you mention. If I just disappear, you know. I know. But yeah, that is the side effect of it, because it's made the attention span not very long. Me personally, I can understand that in the business sense. They want to, I guess, present current news, headline worthy. But for me, I don't care. Your album could be released whenever it was. I will still talk to people. I'm interested in the whole creativity behind it, how it was formed, the music, all that stuff. I find super nerdy. And then there's that archive there. If it's, I always think, look, there's so many bands. There's always a band somebody else knows you don't. And how have you heard of these? So for me, it's still worth doing. So do you? Is that? And I'm just thinking with what you were saying there with magazines only wanting to present something current. Does this make it harder as well for bands to promote themselves with there being so many now? And then sometimes, with that oversaturation, then it can, even if you have got that current or new news, it can be hard to distinguish yourselves from another band because it can get lost in the maelstrom at times. I wonder if
Yeah,
that's possible.
I'd say to some extent yes,
Mm,
because there are a lot of bands out there, especially in the I think in the metal space.
yeah,
And one common problem with them is they all sound the same. I mean, they all
yeah,
have some minor differences, but they're all produced to the thousandth percentile perfection, and there's no humanity left in the songs. It's just like, I mean, they sound great. I listen to them too. No offense there, but I think the edginess is missing from those songs, and that's actually a thing we really try to avoid. So we, for one, we did our stuff on a budget because we don't have that much money. But on the other hand, we especially had like a thought on, okay, let's make it sound great, but not over perfectionist because we want the
yeah,
human factor in it.
yeah,
And that's especially fitting because we don't make modern metal in that sense, but we make traditional metal. And back then there was like, okay, you do the take. If it's good, take it. If it's bad, do it again.
yeah,
And not like, okay, go in there and edit every single hit to perfection. Uh, you didn't do it back then, and we try to avoid it with our record. Um, so to get back to the point with the
no, no, you're,
fans
you're
and
fine. I go
and
off topic
that
all the
there's
time, don't worry.
that there's too much of them. I think there's a lot of bands out there, and I think for one that's great because I mean it's culture and it's
True.
people making music, and the more music and the more creativity there is, the better. And I think this is partly because everyone with a interface, a microphone, or a guitar in his bedroom can make a fucking album. It's not
Yeah,
hard.
yeah,
You can do it, and software like Logic or Pro Tools or whatever have gotten so good that you can pull it off by yourself and do
yeah,
decent mixes. In fact, our first album was completely done in our rehearsal room and mixed by me. It doesn't sound that great, but I think the remix remaster is fine. It's obviously not that great as our current album, which was mixed externally. But yeah, to get back on the point again,
it's all right.
going again.
Honestly, you're
Uh,
fine. Don't worry.
yeah, so yeah, but I think it makes it harder for promoters of
Yeah,
shows or promoters for magazines to select the right band to show off in
yeah,
their magazine because they just can have like a handful because in any other case it just would to be too much information for a reader to read, and also you have to get like the best ones out of there. And I really we have a local club in our scene in Osnabrück where we are based, and they do like if they have a headliner come to them, they usually book a small band from town to do the support slot, and they say like, all right, in the first 5 minutes we get like 200 emails of bands who want to play. We pick the first five of those emails,
yeah,
check if one of those bands is good, and we take one of those because we
yeah,
just cannot read all those emails and
yeah,
applications. And yeah, that's the bad side of too many bands that are good because like the sheer mass is so big. And you could grow over social media, but we had this before we did go live. Social media is hard because
mm,
you either are very successful because you just get the right hashtags at the right time to the right persons, or you post cripple around with like 30 likes and no
yeah,
good attention at all.
yeah,
We actually had we started on TikTok some time ago, and we had one post that really hit and did I think 1 million views and 1,000 likes, and then the other post after it got 50.
yeah.
And so if you don't get a streak with those 1 million views and 1,000 likes, you don't grow in social media.
Yeah, it's
And
really tough, and unless we were saying off, I think with some of the big tech companies and super rich people that have come in and have kind of turned social media, some of it into, well, if you want to get those views, you can pay for, say, our gold star service, and then you will show up in each feed, etc., etc. Where sadly that's priced out and this is in all music scenes, though mid-tier into grassroots, all of us, whether in a band doing shows like this, it's made it that much harder to get out there and do that. You're definitely right about there's so many bands can sound the same. This has come up a lot with guests on the show, and I've said it myself. You can get a band that sounds like, they always say, this band sounds like Band A with a bit of Band E, so you'll like them, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that the bands suck or the bands, but they just sound like the original band, say, who's influenced them with a different singer. And then this is going to sound like arrogant, but you think, well, I may as well just go and listen to that original band. And also I think as well is the way now labels, not music labels, but labeling genres can be thrown around just at the kind of drop of a hat, totally random, where, hey, we sound like this, or this is our genre. And sometimes you can tell when you get the emails and you're looking at it, this has clearly just been invented, like, I don't know, in the coffee shop, that afternoon, because I've never ever heard this. Or you'll listen to that genre and it sounds nothing like what they're supposed to. And I think when it's I'm not saying all of them, but when it's sometimes some of the PR companies that do this for their clients, I think they're doing them a disservice, because they're promoting that artist or band and saying they sound like this particular genre or whatever, and then you start listening to them and it is completely at the opposite end. Just nothing to do with that. And I think that just is bad. It looks bad, because then people will think, oh, I'm going to turn this band off, maybe not even give them a chance, not even a listen, because I was expecting to hear this. I appreciate it can be difficult sometimes if it's a band that, say, is really hard to put in any genre. It can be all over.
Because genres got that much specialized and technical that you have to put 50 characters onto another to describe the genre, and it's got really technical. On the other hand, I think it's important to tell people what genre you do. I mean, for us, it's we do traditional heavy metal, which is, I think it's simple enough. You could say heavy metal, but heavy metal in itself it just got so big that you have to narrow it down now. And we also can say that we sound like Judas Priest because we had people commenting on our songs that it sounds. I think one person actually commented our YouTube video for Soul Stealer, which is the first single that we did, and he said something like, "This sounds like Judas Priest and Overkill had a baby."
Nice compliment.
Which I mean, we take it.
Yeah.
But actually, I think that song was a bit has a few inspirations from Painkiller, actually. It's not the same song in any sense, but
I know what you mean,
because it Sergio goes like "So Stealer" in the chorus, and it's just though those high pitched stuffs are just very priest-like, and the riff is it's pretty stereotypical, but the idea of that song was just to be stereotypical, and I think we actually managed that. To touch on those premium services of social media that you brought up earlier, we actually got those too, and before we got with a promoter to see if we could get something over that, and we spent I think $200 or something on advertisements on Google, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, whatnot, and I think we got 10 likes from that.
So it made no difference then, really.
I think we sold 1 or 2 CDs.
Right.
It didn't really matter. We sold more CDs over Bandcamp to Americans because they just saw us randomly on Bandcamp than we sold over advertisements. So I think advertisements can work, but you really have to do the science behind that so that they work great for you. And as a small band, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, well, thank you for clearing that up, because I was curious if any of these premium services would make a difference or not. And I've had kind of mixed responses from some people who've mentioned them. Some have said, "Oh yeah, this has been okay," others, like yourself, said no difference. So yeah, that was really interesting to hear for sure. And there was something else you said that I wanted to touch upon. Whilst I'm trying to remember what that was, Bandcamp, I think, is really good for bands and music in general, because if anybody buys a single or an album, the proceeds go direct to the band for the most part. Even if Bandcamp takes a fee, it's usually only small. So it's a really good way of directly supporting the bands, and on the merchandise sales, particularly for the shirts, any vinyl editions, anything like that. Um, and I like the fact on Bandcamp, I can go on there and say search for, I know, crust punk, thrash, traditional heavy metal, whatever, and it's quite good at bringing up a list of really good underground artists on there as well. And I like the fact it's very accessible. You don't need to register for an account. If you just want to just listen to the music first before, and well, you can even buy. You don't have to have one. So I think it's such an awesome tool, I think, for bands.
It's also simple for bands to manage,
mm,
because you just log in there and you just put your stuff on it,
mm,
upload your logo and your set.
mm.
And yeah, the fees are there. There are sometimes those Bandcamp Fridays where they actually do not
Yeah,
take any revenue, and you have to get to get the people to buy when
yeah,
the Bandcamp Friday is there. But the fee is not too bad. I think it's like a few euros that they take, and I mean they do all the hosting, they develop the platform, and as I do that type of stuff at work, I know that this can get really expensive, so it's absolutely fine. Most people pay over PayPal for the stuff. They take
mm,
some fee too, but that's fine. It's also fine. But actually, the biggest cost for Bandcamp is the postage fees. I mean, we add those to the cart, so the customer pays the transporting stuff. But
mm.
if someone from America buys an album of us, I think we sell the album for 12 or 13 euros there. The shipping is like 16 euros, because that's the amount our post office charges us if we send
Yeah,
something from here to America, and
yeah,
that's the cheapest rate. Where you really have to ask the person, don't you have that small package one, not the normal small package one, but the cheaper one?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you really have to get them to give you that rate. And we actually had to argue with a few people who said like, that's too expensive, that's
yeah,
bullshit. I don't want to pay 16 euros for shipping. I said, I know it's expensive, but what should I do? I paid that
yeah.
exact amount
Yeah,
to
it's
the
nothing to do.
service.
It's out of your control, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't import stuff for that money. And actually,
yeah,
shipping worldwide is a pain for us too, because with every single CD that you ship across the ocean, you have to fill out customs and stuff, so that they know, okay, there's a CD in it, it has this number and stuff, and it weighs 100 grams, and I literally have to get out my kitchen weigh, like the thing where you can see how heavy a thing is. I don't know the English word for it right now. And scale, I think it was scale,
yeah, yeah,
and
mm,
put the stuff on there. So every
yeah.
CD that someone imported actually was in my kitchen at some point. Yeah. So that's a pain. But we do it because we really appreciate those maniacs who pay 13 euros for a CD and 16 for shipping.
Yeah,
And I always put a small note like "thank you a lot," which I don't do for German shippings, because I mean those are fine too. But if someone pays like more than the CD is worth for shipping, that's just crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is, and I really can relate to what you're saying, because when I've had bands want to send me their CD, say from America or Australia, then it's then you get slapped with import charges as well, which can end up costing even double the price, adding the weight on. The same when I've ordered various sports jerseys for ice hockey or other things, and they've come from America. And used to order them from there because it was cheaper than buying them here, where there'd be extortionate prices. But now, when you get at this, especially with Brexit and everything, it's put the
Mhm.
import charges up, and I'm just like, man. So it's kind of now it's worked out about the same. You might as well buy that, say, replica jersey here, which can be is stupidly expensive, but it works out the same once you add on the import charges. And that's I hopefully we can get to some. Going off on another tangent here, so but hopefully we can get to some medium ground in the future, because I feel it's hurting the arts as well in that regard. Well, everything in general.
Yeah, but actually, I think importing stuff up to a certain amount of money is okay. I think in Europe it's like 150 euros.
Yeah,
of
something like that.
goods.
Yeah.
I don't know about UK since the Brexit, but actually in USA it's more or less the same. We just have to fill out the forms, so the tax people there know that it's fine. And I don't think that anyone ever complained that they had to pay fees in their country. But I don't know. Maybe they just didn't reach out to us about that.
Yeah, well, I think it might be a UK thing as well at the moment, because I was slapped with a couple of those import fees, which kind of sucked. That was it. I remembered what I was going to comment on when you mentioned that you play, metal that's very, very faithful to traditional classic heavy metal, and I think you were saying that the sound they had back in that era might not have been the best, but we still, enjoy that music. And I noticed that when I was listening to Tomb, no, sorry, Legacy of the Sword, you, yes, you've got that cleanness in the sound, but it's not to the point where, and a lot of people have said this to me as well, where it's not too overproduced. It still maintains a bit of that rawness, a bit of those grimy metal feels, and it's like you've got that nice balance. And was that always what you all wanted to do as a band? Say, look, we love this era of metal. If we're going to play this, we want to do that particular period some justice, but obviously we can improve the sound but still maintain what is great, what hearing that grain and dirt, what people enjoy about that. Hope I've made sense of that very long-winded comment. So was that something you always naturally have done as musicians? We're going to play this sound, we're going to keep a bit of the grime, improve it a bit, but not go too polished.
Yeah, I'd say yes. So, as I said earlier, our guitarist Oliver, who writes the songs, is a huge fan of those classic stuff. He also listens to more modern stuff, like Guardian, which is a band. They were around like in the 90s already, but they are still around today and make modern music. And he also listens from time to time to really modern stuff, like I don't know, Powerwolf or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think this creates our unique mix. We do traditional metal, which is a compliment to the old stuff, to the old gods, which is another reason we call Tomb of Giants, because we want to be a compliment to the old stuff, but also incorporates some modern influences, which you cannot have no modern influences in your music, because as soon as you listen to modern stuff, you automatically get influenced without you even knowing. It just goes into your blood, because you cannot go anywhere without listening to modern music. Actually, we do have a heavy metal club nearby, which just changed the owners, and it's currently closed since about a few months. But it will be reopened. I think it's this Saturday actually, and we were there and having a party in a dance floor, which was themed like an old church. And they would play in the early evening. They would have more modern stuff, Powerwolf, and I don't know what all these bands are called, Sabaton and whatever. And then the later it would get, they would have their 45-minute phase where they would go over all those 80s hair metal stuff, like Twisted Sister, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, and stuff like that, which I personally love very much. And then they would have their 80s heavy metal stuff with a lot of Manowar stuff, a lot of Maiden, Judas Priest and stuff. And we as a band, most of us would meet up there, drink a lot of whiskey cola, And so I think this also defines our style, because if you go to the club and party like to that music like all evening and most weekends of your youth,
Yeah.
it just incorporates your style. And I think this is why we have such a deep love for that traditional heavy metal.
Yeah, yeah, it's the culture, isn't it? And those positive times and memories that go with it. And like I was saying, that fun vibe, you just give me
Yeah,
another example of that. That's transferred into the music. You can hear it. And then that's what makes it catchy and grabs the listener because it's got that fun and that energy. There's be nothing. I mean, if you didn't enjoy what you were playing, there'd be something wrong. It's like, you know, when you can see TV shows and you have like the session guitarist or keyboard player in the background, you see them, they're playing, and they're just, and you could tell, yeah, this is just the day job. This is not what I'm really into. So,
they are
um,
usually very good guitar players, though.
yeah,
They're
yeah, they are. They're
extremely clean.
incredible.
They play
Yeah,
perfectly, but the emotion is missing.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I actually noticed that with some bands too. I was at, I think it was some festival in Hamburg, like 2016 or something, and Slayer was the headliner of the day. And I like Slayer, I like the songs, but it was one of the most boring bands I ever saw, because they just stood on the stage, played their set, no emotions, nothing, and left. Other
oh
people
man,
who were in the mosh pit said, "Oh, they were great. There was so
yeah,
much emotion." But I think that was the emotion created by the fans and
yeah,
not by the band.
yeah,
And on the same day, all the bands before them just had genuine fun. At least
yeah,
it seemed like that on the stage, and that's something that we usually have. I mean, we have been around the past 4 weeks playing every weekend, and just as soon as you hit the stage and your head does not stop moving, it's just it's warm, it's sweaty. You have fun with the boys. It's just great. You have an audience that is hooked up, and it's just great. And you get like a lot of emotions from it, and it gives you a lot, at least for us. And I cannot understand how you can go on a stage and do it like your daytime job. I think maybe it's because we do it. We don't really do it as a profession, but as a hobby, more or
well,
less. But
well, I still think if it's I've seen Slayer a few times and I've had a 50-50 experience. Sometimes it's been absolutely fantastic, it's been absolutely amazing. And then other times it's been exactly how you've described, very good musicians, etc. But like exactly what you said. Um, I saw that with Fear Factory one time, and then I'm not a fan of this band myself, but I remember when they did play, I think it was possibly the Download Festival, yeah. And I've heard other people say this. Okay, they were really good musicians. There's no getting away from it. But the as you said, there was no. I felt there was no passion. There was no fun. It was almost just like watching a. It was like watching a band rehearse, but without the fun and energy. And the
yeah,
guy, the lead singer of Tool, he had his back turned to the audience. Now, Tool fans always tell me it's because he believes no one is bigger than the band. Yeah, but when you're paying money, which a lot of the time you've saved up for hard to go and see that
mm-hmm.
band, I want that guy or woman to turn around and acknowledge the audience a few times, at least thank us for being there, have a little bit of interaction, not where I'm literally just kind of like, it's like going around to watch one of your friends play games where he's engrossing an MMO and you're talking to the back of his head and he's like, yeah, 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 okay,
Yeah,
yeah, just do this part, yeah, yeah. No, I thought I
yeah,
can go and I don't have to pay for that. I can just go around with my friends and watch him play,
yeah,
and all the scrolls or whatever. And it's yeah.
yeah.
So
But at the same time, I think
yeah,
there's actually bands where it's okay that they are like that. I
mhm,
remember seeing Opeth at Wacken, and they were like, I think they had a very late slot. I think it was 1 in the morning, and
yeah,
they were just like, okay, hi there, we're playing, we're Opeth. The next
yeah,
song is 18 minutes, have fun. But it was great.
yeah.
So I think it always depends on the band, because Slayer is like a band who does furious music, and it's just
True.
like, nah. And I think there has to be emotion. And Opeth is more like a prog band where it's just like technical. And I remember me standing in the front row and going like, they are doing crazy stuff up there, and like technically. And I think it was fitting for them to behave that way. It's not that they didn't move like anything or didn't have didn't have no emotions at all, but they weren't like going crazy like we
Yeah,
do on stage. But
yeah,
it's fair because it was fitting.
yeah. They don't. Yeah, and in that scenario, and definitely. But at least, like I was saying, with the Tool scenario, you want at least. Hey, we're gonna play this little thanks. Not really, literally just watching the back of the guy.
Mm.
Opeth, a fantastic live. One of the best shows I saw was Opeth live, and I've talked about this on quite a few past episodes with people who've brought Opeth up in the conversation. And I remember seeing them in Leeds, and they played this kind of. It was like an underground. It was beneath, I think, a railway line and a bridge that went over this part of the city, and it was all dark, and it was near the dockside actually, and it made the atmosphere even better, and the sound
Mm.
reverberated off the walls, and it was very intimate atmosphere. It was very dark, but it just fit them perfectly, and we were on about bands sometimes can be too far wide reaching or having all these different genres. Well, Opeth, I think they're a good example of doing it in the correct way,
Yeah,
because if you look at the early material and now they're definitely more prog, and how that guy can change from clean to harsh,
it's
and then the
insane.
music, it's honestly, look, I listen to a lot of very fast, harsh stuff as well, grindcore and hardcore, brutal death too,
Mm.
but they were phenomenal live. They really were. The musicianship, everything, the timing, and you're right. You are just stood there, and you're kind of just like, man, this is just such. You've got to appreciate the music when you see something like that.
Yeah,
Incredible, especially
yeah,
to
but
do that
actually,
at 1 a.m. as well.
yeah, yeah, but actually, what was pretty crazy about the Opeth show, at least
Yeah,
what I experienced, was like the first four rows was the nerds like me who just stood there and went like, "Oh, they're doing crazy stuff and
yeah,
doing crazy solos," and behind us there was a giant pit where everybody hit the other one's t-shirt. So
yeah.
with
Pleasant
songs
evening.
like
Yeah,
Deliverance or something, it's just like
yeah,
it's very musically, but you really can get crazy to the song too. But I never experienced a band that gets that both things very
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I never had another band who did exactly that.
Yeah, you're right. There's an art form, I think, in going from clean to harsh, and some people can do it perfectly or be very good, and then others will be more suited to the harsher vocals, can't do the clean at all, or vice versa. Um, but they just seem to be able to transition so well, and with the music. I often say, if people say, well, how would you describe Opeth to me? I say, if you've got a chance to see them live, just go and see them. That's the best advice I can give you on Opeth, is go and see them live, because how I describe it will be so different to probably how somebody
Yeah,
else will, because it's so, they are one of those bands and that who is so hard to really, we were mentioning genres, were quite hard to put in any particular genre. So I just say, just go and watch them, and if you enjoy it, that's all that counts. Turning attention back to your own music for a while. I know we went off on a tangent while we were sharing our love of Opeth, but they do come up a lot, though. The guests have brought them up. I talked with the guitarist, and he mentioned them, and I think they're one of those bands that are universally appreciated by musicians and fans alike. Anyway, getting back to Tomb of Giants, people like, this is just two guys talking about Opeth all night. Yeah, we get you like them, but aren't you supposed to be interviewing a guy from Tomb of Giants? Yes, I'll get back to that. Don't worry. But this happens. So I'm just curious as well. How did you get into playing bass, and is the bassist even from outside of the metal scene that kind of had an impact on your playing style? I'm just curious.
sorry, what was the last part? I just lost the airport.
Oh, it's all right. Yeah, it's that UFO again, flying around. I just wondered, how you got into playing
Yeah.
bass, and if there were any bassists even from outside of metal music that you thought, oh yeah, I really like the way they do it, and if that
Yeah,
had an
sure.
impact on you.
Actually, I got into playing bass by an accident, which is like I think for mostly for most bassists. I originally started playing guitar in I think 2011,
Yeah.
and I started playing guitar with a few friends from school and actually in the church because they had a guitar course for like €8 per session, and it was the cheapest one you could get.
Oh,
And I
that's
just wanted to
good.
get started. They even gave me a guitar to borrow and helped me pick the first one that I still got and love,
Yeah.
acoustic be it. But then a school friend, a father of a school friend, met someone while swimming, and he said, "Oh man, I have this band and I need a bassist." And he said, "I know one." And then he told me, and I should call that guy up. And I said, "Yeah, well, here I am. What do you want?" And he was like, "Yeah, I need a bassist." I'm okay. I do play guitar, but I would learn to play bass if you had one. And he said, "Luck's on me. I have a bass. You can have it." And
Yeah.
then I got that bass, which was a pretty shitty one. It has like strings from the. I can maybe show it. Just see, space from the strings is like very far away. I don't know if it will focus, but it really has a far distance.
Yeah.
And that's actually after I did set it up. So it was way worse when I started learning on it. But like I think it was Easter holiday when I got that thing, and then I rehearsed all the songs. It was a cover band, so I
Yeah.
did like basic stuff from Led Zeppelin, Green Day, Black Sabbath, so nothing too hard. And I started playing with the plectrum first, and given that the string height was so bad, I had to practice very well. So I was able to play very good on a bass that was set up really well. So I
Yeah.
got fit relatively fast, played with the band, and stayed with the band until 2016, when that guitarist actually died from cancer, sadly.
Oh, sorry,
And
man.
so that broke up then. But I also was in a school band playing guitar, and I think it was 2013, and a guy from the school band hooked me up and said, "Hey, you play bass, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I have that bass in that band. What's up?" And he said, "Yeah, we're doing that one-off AC/DC cover gig with a few guys. We need a bassist. Are you interested?" And I'm like, it was 2013. I was like in 10th grade. We have 12 grades in Germany, so I was like 16, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, sure. I have spare time after school. Why not?" So I joined. And we did that. We did prepare the AC/DC songs, and I think we did play a few Accept songs, if I remember correctly. And we had a singer from an AC/DC cover band from this region, and we did a one-off thing. And afterwards, the singer had obligations with his AC/DC cover band, his real one, and we decided, oh, okay, we need to get a new singer, but we like each other. The chemistry is great. Just let's move on and write own songs and do the traditional heavy metal thing. Because while playing, we noticed that we love AC/DC, but we liked that Accept stuff more because it was like a bit heavier.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
wanted to go in that direction. We then, until the first songs were done, we started to play a bit of Iron Maiden and stuff, just to get along with each other and meet and play music together. And then first songs emerged, and I think we had our first gig in 2014 as Tomb of Giants. And this was actually with our guitarist Oliver singing. We have a clip somewhere. It wasn't great because he's not a very good singer, but it was iconic, and it's a very important memory for us. And then we, I think in 2015, we found a singer, Shansal. He was from Turkey. And we started with him, and we actually started recording stuff, but then he had to leave in 2016 because he was fired from his job because they had fired like massive amount of people because they shut the factory down or something.
All right.
And he had to relocate to Munich, which is like on the other side of the country from us.
Yeah.
So he had to leave, sadly.
Oh, that's
And
a
then
shame.
we found our new singer Sergio from Italy, who, nothing bad about Shansal, but Sergio had all that qualities that we feel lacked from Shansal. He has
Right.
this. He can go to the very high notes. He
Yeah.
has this Italian accent which is very distinct. I think you have to like it, of course, but it gives the music a unique vibe. And he also has this edginess in his voice. This is just this roughness which you don't get with every singer. And yeah, that's how I got to play bass, I got to play bass in Tomb of Giants, and how our band evolved.
Yeah, and I think as well as we were talking about earlier, staying faithful to that style as well, and transitioning uh, from the range in vocals, which he certainly does. So that seems it's really suited the band as a whole. It's the right chemistry, and also just wondering, that's a really cool story as well. Are there any bassists outside of heavy metal as well? You know, who you looked at
Sure.
and thought, oh man, these are cool.
Yeah, I totally forgot to touch on that.
Oh, it's all right.
So,
So,
actually, back in school, I did hang out a lot with the bassist from our school band, who was more like a jazz bassist.
right.
That was
Well, that's cool.
like his favorite genre, and
Yeah.
he got me hooked up with a band called, I think it was SMV, which is like a super group of a few bassists. I think it was Victor Wooten, Marcus Miller, and some other guy. I don't really recall the name,
Okay.
but those are very, very great bassists who are most likely not metal, but they are
Yeah.
exceptionally great.
Yeah.
They mostly do slapping and tapping
Yeah.
stuff, but great bassists, which are very inspiring, I'd say. Other than that, I'd say inside of metal, there's actually a few bass sounds that I really like, because the bass sounds like great, but those are that many bands that I really cannot describe
Yeah. Yeah.
every single one of those. But at the end of the day, I think bass playing in itself, apart from those jazz guys who are really
Yeah.
crazy, is
Yeah.
not that. I personally don't get really inspired by that. I do my stuff myself. I think, oh, that's a cool line. I'll do that maybe. But yeah, maybe I'm forgetting something and
No.
doing you
No.
something a disfavor. But for me, basically, it was just like, okay, I'll learn that stuff and do it myself. I think I had one bass lesson in my entire life, which was like 3 years ago. Some bassist from the local area, which was in like a bigger band. I think
Excuse me.
it was like a Depeche Mode cover band. I don't know. I think she was at a show, and
Yeah.
we talked a bit, and she told me, yeah, I'm playing this and that, and I also do lessons and blah blah blah. And at one point I thought, okay, I want to get rid of that pick and start playing with my fingers. And with 2 fingers I can get along, but the 3-finger technique, which I really need for our stuff because it's really, really fast, I just don't get along with that. And I went to her and said, well, I want to improve my technique. Can you give me a lesson? And then we met up. And she basically said, well, I cannot give you advice on your technique. It's fine. You just have to practice more. And
Like with anything, yeah.
yeah, so obviously I didn't.
Like my
Because
German needs more practice. Yeah.
yeah, the cliche is, well, bassists don't practice that much, and I
Yeah.
think that is true, because sometimes I practice. I do learn the new songs, of
Yeah.
course, but yeah, most of the time it just comes naturally, and it's
But that's good though. You know, this is a topic that, you know, we discuss a lot on the show about how playing any instrument can just come naturally, and the majority of people have said, yeah, it's come naturally. I think that there may have been one or two that have said no, they've say gone down a structured path to learn, but for the most part I think it's been, no, it's things come out naturally, which I think is the best way with art and music. The same for ideas and themes. I mean, you mentioned this earlier, which we can get into in a moment, about playing the music first, the riffs, and then, you know, the lyrics and the titles and everything comes after that. And I'm not saying there's any right or wrong way to do it. I know there's some people, you know, they've been on this show, said, oh, we write first, then we add the music in. Yeah, it's whatever works best for that person. And on jazz as well, it's funny, man, because jazz is, I feel it's one of those kind of forms of music that is it's very freestyle, and it's almost like a guy or girl is literally just I'm not saying no one expresses themselves in metal, but it's just this pure, undiluted expression. The things they're doing with the fingers, as you were saying, the taps, and even the drummers as well, with the speeds, and you think, man, that is absolutely insane with some of them particular solos they do. So it's one form of music. Yeah, go on, Danny.
Actually,
That's all right.
some jazz bands are,
Mm.
technically speaking, more crazy than heavy metal bands because they have faster parts, they have more complicated parts, and to some extent they even have like heavier parts,
Yeah.
maybe, because like jazz is not a strict genre, it's like extremely broad. And
Yeah.
actually, my guitar teacher back then, who was always also my school teacher for that band in school, said to me, there are two genres when it boils down. You have classic music and you have jazz.
Yeah.
Everything, rock, metal, pop, whatever, is basically jazz.
Yeah.
Because it's not classic.
Yeah.
Jazz is so broad that it can project to any other genre if you want to. And I think there's a lot of truthness in that because it's just that broad.
Yeah, well, it is. It crosses over and everything. Honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I've heard hip hop with jazz beats. You obviously get the jazz rock crossover, jazz blues. There's even that. Was it in some areas of technical death metal? You can even get like a jazz influenced technical death metal, even in progressive as well. It's in everything, and you're right. It's so complex and out there. And I've even, when I've talked to people from bands, not just on the show, people I know, that they've even sometimes told me that some death metal bands have recruited a jazz drummer. And it helps if the jazz drummer obviously liked metal as well, but they've particularly recruited one with a jazz background for the speed, to do the blast beats and for changing up and all the pace. And when I've heard people tell me that, I thought, well, I'm not surprised when you look at it. Because it's getting back to Opeth, and I'll behave myself so we don't go on, but it's really kind of hard to even say, look, this is a jazz expert would probably be able to do it maybe, but just from my limited understanding, because it is so broad and vast, it's quite hard to say, right, this is jazz, because it's in everything and it can be in there. And I'm not well, I was going to say I'm not a jazz fan myself, but there probably is jazz that I like that I'm not even aware of, because it's in all of that music, even with the trumpet playing, saxophone, it's the piano, it's I do respect and appreciate it for that basis, an incredible technical high form of music that is certainly one of those root forms as well, as you were saying. It's in everything there. Anyway, I'll get back to Two Giants for a moment or two. That's why I said earlier, don't worry about going off topic.
Yeah, sure.
You're in the right place. I do it all the time, every single show. I noticed as well the video for Soul Stealer. I liked the effects that you had on that. You've got Sergio there, in one part he's kind of like, I'm going to do some very bad acting now, so apologies, but he kind of like goes like this with his hand, towards and it really matched the feel of that song. I like the feel of it with the lighting and everything. I'm just curious, how long did that take to, put together, and where did you film it?
Yeah. So we filmed that at our rehearsal space. We just hung our banner in front of the drum set and blocked all the lights off.
Yeah.
And our rehearsal space is relatively small, but we have a small light installation there because in 2020, a friend of mine who had a sound company quit, and he sold all of his light stuff and things. I bought that up for a fair price. And then I just put it in our rehearsal room because we thought, oh, okay, COVID is going on. We can rehearse, but we cannot play shows that much. Maybe we'll do a live stream. But the internet connection in our rehearsal room is relatively bad, so we didn't do that. But we have this light installation. So we said, okay, for the video, it may be a good thing. So we just hung up the banner and got the fog machine out of the basement and actually we when we're done filming it, sorry, the filming went like an afternoon or something. It was
Yeah.
relatively quick. We did
Whoa.
like drums, guitars, and bass on that afternoon because Sergio didn't have time. We had the others who were not filmed at the moment, so we filmed each member individually. Um, Everyone who was not playing just took a camera and filmed. We just was like all our phones. We had like 2 iPhones, and that was the
Yeah.
camera equipment because those things are just that great in the meantime that you can just throw your camera at it and it's fine. And I was mostly controlling the lights. Like I think we had 4 lights hanging from the ceiling, pointing at
Whoa.
the instrument, and then we had like 4 lights surrounding the drum set, and for the individual players like the guitars and bass, we had it like behind the player, so you had like lights from front and lights from the back. And we mostly had this red scene with a strobe effect or some blinking and stuff, and I just controlled it. And for the very last take of Sergio, I learned how to tell the program which tact, clap. I don't know the word for tact
Yeah.
in English.
I understand. I know what you're
Which
saying.
speed, which music
Yeah.
speed it has to go. And then I learned that I could sync our program, which we used to play back the music, to also control the light, which would have made my life a lot easier because I was always tapping on that thing to get the tempo right, but it was always like a tiny bit off. And would I just hooked up the program to that thing, it would just have worked. So yeah, so we basically had like an afternoon. I think we started at 10 in the morning and set stuff up, and I think we were done like 18 o'clock or so, like 8 hours, of which we like filmed I
Wow.
think 4 or 6, which
Cool.
was with a lot of experimenting because we didn't do anything like that up until
Yeah.
that point, because it was a first for all of us. And then we did Sergio like a few weeks after, in an evening or something, and basically we just said to him, all right, we'll film that stuff, just go crazy and it will be fine. And then we did like, I think we did like 2 or 3 takes for each person, and then we cut it together.
Yeah.
Which was actually the part that took the longest, because I sat here with our other guitarist Yannick for like, I think a whole day,
But that was
just
fun.
cutting that.
Yeah.
And we were like deciding, okay, we can use this take, and then we have to swap this because we will have to other way we will have to sorry.
It's okay.
Any other way we'll have too much of drums in that scene, and you have to change up stuff. And we want to show the guitarist when he plays the solo, but we also want to show Sergio because he does a cool move and stuff. And just like the cutting is very hard because you have so much cool stuff that you have to show. And so much material that you can use that it's hard to decide. The filming is easy because you just have to throw cameras and point it, and it's fine. But the cutting is hard.
Yeah, I always think that must be quite difficult, for those who are making movies as well, because you think, say, they do, I don't know, a couple of months filming or whatever, they'll have so much, and it's like, right, what's going to make the final cut, what we're going to put in the theaters. And you can get this special release editions of movies where, right, unseen 30 minutes or whatever. And it's the same as you were describing there, Daniel, with music. It's okay, we want to show everything that is good, best of course we do, because we want to promote ourselves out there. Don't worry, I think that it must be that UFO back in the background using stealth technology. So maybe you're going to steal the bass.
I just wondered what that light thing there was, but I noticed it was just my bass. I thought that was a tower or something.
Yeah, I was wondering if we haven't got spirits just to turn. Yeah, I will put the light on in the background. I've just noticed things are starting to go very creepingly dark in the background, even though outside it's not actually dark. But
it's gotten dark here actually.
Yeah, you're an hour ahead, so probably the time we finished it'll be dark here as well. But yeah, you're wanting to show everything good, what you enjoyed in the filmmaking process, especially with the music, etc. as well. So that's probably one of the most difficult things. That is still incredibly fast though, to have it done in that day. because sometimes, you know, a band can say book out a whole week or say go one weekend, then back the next weekend, and it can take, say, even a month, and even they'll say, right, well, that was quite fast. So to have it done there in the day. And I did like the other video as well that you've done for
Railgunner, I think.
Railgunner, yeah, because you see the train in there, like the lettering that comes up, Guns and Gas. It really goes with the themes and the music on that song.
Yeah.
And me being a movie nerd, which I'm saying on every show, and having like a naturally visual imagination, I really appreciated that and thought that was really well done.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that was also on a very tight budget.
Mm.
We wanted to do a second video, but we didn't want to film one because even though it just took like a day and a half in total time, it was like pretty stressing because we don't have that much spare time actually.
Yeah.
And so we decided, okay, let's like go on Fiverr and find someone who can like do a lyric video for us. And I think this guy was from Pakistan or something, and he did it for relatively cheap amount, and we had to supply the images ourselves, and so I just took like 2 or 3 hours and fumbled with some AI generators, and I got these images out of it, and I really liked those images.
Yeah.
And so that's great.
You know what it reminded me of, man, was you know when you see cutscenes in a game or in the intros as well, it kind of had that feel. I thought it was like playing like you know, an RTS game, for example, or a first-person shooter where it's got the scenes. So I really enjoyed it because it had those feels, and I thought it really did complement the song perfectly. So, and the way the lettering, how it appears as well, the lyrics, I think it just grabbed me instantly. I'm just going to
yeah, sure.
One moment, turn the light on, folks. I'm kind of still here. Just stretching across. Lighting effects. Yeah, I think I've just demonstrated the proceeds or the problems with a limited budget, not being in a professional studio, I guess. Yay. Well, that's better. Actually, whoa, daylight.
I'm actually impressed how well my IKEA light bulb about there just does in lighting the whole room. The camera actually does a fair job of getting the light where it has to be.
Yeah. Well, there's always the fun on trying to put something together from IKEA as well. We talked about you probably you could record a whole album quicker than you could put something together from IKEA. That's for sure.
I would disagree actually, because I got really fast in putting stuff together from IKEA.
Hey, oh man, you'll have to give me some pointers, man.
I moved into this apartment like 3 years ago with my girlfriend, and like most of our furniture is from IKEA. Honestly, the desk, the whatever, everything that we have in this whole apartment. And actually producing the album, to get back to the band finally.
Oh yeah. Forget about that while we're here.
Actually, doing the album actually took quite a long time, because well, you have to set everything up. You have to get the levels right, and we try to produce the albums ourselves. For one, because I like to do it, because it's a thing that I really like to do, is produce music with fiddling with microphones and putting them in some weird places and getting great sounds of a drum set or a guitar or whatever. And it's just fun to me to do something and have it sound good after all. And it makes me very proud that I recorded this thing here. So it's would we have been in some recording studio and have done the recordings also at the studio, it probably wouldn't feel the same way to me, because I have the CD here and I know I've put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of work into this thing, just getting that stuff recorded. And knowing I was there in every single recording situation that we had to get this album done is just makes this thing my little baby. I think it's a little baby for everyone in the band, but I think for me especially, because I spent so many hours on it. And actually we did the recordings ourselves in a rehearsal room, which was challenging actually, because we had to get it a little bit acoustically treated before we started that, because it happened to be a pig stall, I think you would call it, so a place where you would keep pigs.
Yeah.
back in like 50 years ago. Then it became something like a garage or workshop. And then when our band started out, we decided, okay, we need something. And they said, okay, well, we have this pig stall in our house, or workshop in our house. We can divide it into 2 parts and have the rehearsal room in one of those. And so it just like it's brick walls and dry walls on the other hand, and they don't sound that great. So we had to put like all those acoustic foam stuff around and see if we need bass traps and whatever. And once we got that done, we started tracking drums, which took like I think 3 weeks. We had to get that done though, like until a certain point, because we had a gig and we would have to take apart a drum set because you have to bring your own cymbals and snare and whatever. So the mic positions would change. So we had to get that done until like I think it was early May in last year. And then we had a longer pause in recording because some of us catch corona and then another catch corona, and we couldn't really proceed. So we then at some point went on with guitars, and those took quite some time because we did like I think we did everyone twice. So you double the guitars to get a thicker sound, and then with the harmonies we did like I think we did. Sometimes we did 6 tracks and just said, okay, we'll do it now and then we'll see if it works or not to get the harmonies bigger. I think one of the songs where it really shines is Ad Victoriam, where you have this middle part where you have this guitar solo with a lot of layers. And I think that alone took 2 days to get done because while recording, so usually the songs are done before we start recording, but with that song, it was like, oh, we have that idea. Let's just try it out. And just put it together because we knew we're doing it ourselves. We're not paying a studio per day. We're just hanging out and we have to have the time. But we were like, okay, let's go for it and try it out. And I think it turned out good. There were actually a few points where we said, okay, that doesn't sound that good. Let's just leave that out. But actually doing it ourselves gives us the freedom to do it that way. And on the other hand, if you would go to a studio and not do it yourself, but do it in a studio, you would have to schedule like a week or 2 where everyone is free from work and can go in the studio and get things done. And that's pretty hard with 5 people who have to schedule vacations and stuff so they can go there. And so with doing it ourselves, we just had to schedule where I have time and where Oliver or whoever has to be tracked has time, so we can get in the rehearsal room and get stuff done, which was a challenge too, which also made the process longer because we had to look like, okay, I have time now, but he's on, I don't know, he has to work late because there's a lot to do in summer. And that whole process took us nearly a year. I think we started in early April, and we were done with all recordings in late November with all checks. So It was like, okay, that's half a year, okay. But still then, we then put it into the studio. He mixed it for a week, and we had our final results in January. And April to January for an album I think is a long time, and I would definitely be able to put together a lot of IKEA furniture in that time.
You could probably build a whole house of IKEA just itself, a whole street of it. But I was going to ask you what the most challenging aspect was in making an album, and then it's great. You've already actually touched on all of those areas. I think in anything like that, it's kind of like that duality again. The scheduling, the time processed involved, it can take very long, but once you have accomplished it and it's done, as you said, it's like your little baby and you've created it. That's so rewarding because then there it is, that whole vision you had together with the music, the lyrics, everything. It's all come together and it's there, and it's like, well, what are people going to think of this? How are they going to react? Are they going to appreciate it as much as us? So it's you have that on top of it, but Well, perfectly. Before I continue, how have people reacted so far? I know you mentioned some said it was like Judas Priest and Overkill had a baby, which is a good compliment. So I'm guessing the reaction's been
Yeah,
pretty good.
I didn't really hear bad reviews or bad impressions.
Nice.
So it's, I mean, it's usual that people who don't like your stuff just don't talk to you. So it could be that it's shit, and I don't only heard from a few people who
No.
liked it. But the usual reviews who we got were great. A few reviewers didn't like our singer, but I think that's just personal taste. It's music that you
Right.
have to like because he is Italian and he has this distinct voice, which you either
Yeah.
absolutely love or you don't get
Yeah.
along with it, and that's
Yeah.
fine. Um, but yeah, that's. I think we only had one review who didn't like the singer, and all others were like, "That's great. Those guys are 100% heavy metal. They touch all the cliches they have to touch, and they keep that flame of old heavy metal alive."
A spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we did get a lot of bonus points there, and a lot of magazines actually liked the fact that we didn't over polish our songs, but kept
That's
it
I
true in
noticed
a
that.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
because yeah, I said it earlier, everything starts to sound the same, and I mean, in some way, I want to produce an album myself which sounds that polished, only to have done it. But on
Mm.
the other hand, I really enjoy this rawness a lot more.
It's funny you mention that, and I'm gonna sound like I'm contradicting myself here, and maybe I am. With some forms of music, even in metal, the cleaner aspect goes with it. And then with some styles, it doesn't quite work. You still need that dirty gutter edge or the kind of that balance, like a middle ground in it. And that must be a challenge in itself when, especially when you're creating and playing this style of music, because as we've been saying throughout the conversation, you want to stay faithful to the roots, to the spirit, to keep that flame alive, to appreciate it, to not kind of butcher the soul of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But then you don't want to sound, I guess, unlistenable, like too bad. Like I'm going to
Yeah,
up, so
you have to
it's
find the sweet
yeah,
spot. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that must be not that easy to do. I bet.
Yeah, sure. Uh, I have to agree. Like for some bands, it just have to be that polish. I mean, like some metalcore bands or deathcore bands, if they had our sound, the music wouldn't work.
Mm,
They have to have this very clean drum set, which just punches you away without a single bit of dirt, while we need that little bit of dirt to be authentic. So it
mm,
really depends on the genre. And I think there's a song that I particularly like, which is extremely polished, which is like a cover version of this hip hop song "Unholy," which is like "Mommy don't know that he's getting hot," blah blah blah. This song, which is under every second Instagram reel at some point, um, and this is a metal song which is just overproduced as fuck. It's
yeah,
extremely overproduced, but for that specific song, it's
it
just
works.
exceptionally great
Yeah,
because it makes that rap song pop even more,
yeah.
and it has this metal vibe. So yeah, it just depends.
Yeah, you're right. And there's some great metal covers of pop songs where, it could be a turd pop song and then a metal band covers it and then actually makes that song good. And it can still be clean, even though it can be still very clean and polished, it still has that metal edge. So I think, yeah, and it's something I'm going to reflect on myself as well. Now we've brought this up is it depends on the genre. There are certain styles where it just wouldn't work. You're definitely right on deathcore. I recently chatted with fantastic deathcore band, and they were using a lot of symphonic effects in the music, which man brought the whole thing alive, especially with the drums, with the blast beats. So yeah, it's I think it's like what you're saying with what you were doing with Tomb of Giants. It's recognizing what that genre is, where it's from, what you need to do, and of course, there's nothing wrong with experimenting or adding our own takes or bringing something extra into that as well. But if you've got that kind of base, that essence, what you can build from and expand from, a bit like with putting together IKEA, I guess. As long as the base works, then add on
Yeah,
the bits. and that's the way to go with it. And it's good to hear that you've got that feedback, and that really the only sense of bad criticism, I guess, is either people just haven't liked that vocal style, but they've
Yeah.
still liked the music. So that's not really that bad when you think about it.
No, absolutely
And
not.
yeah,
They were like, the music is great, great
yeah,
playing, the production is fine.
yeah,
It has to be that way that it is, but I don't like the singer, and that's fine. And
yeah,
all other reviews were like, it's solid traditional heavy metal, 8
yeah,
from 10 points, and we're happy with that. It's
yeah,
totally fine.
yeah, yeah. No, that is really cool. And then if it's someone who just doesn't like that particular genre, that style, well, yeah, you know, that's even in that sense, it's still not totally bad because that's just not for them. These people are recognizing the music as well, which is really cool, man. So, you know, looking at the album, are there any songs on there that you're particularly proud of, that are personal favorites of yours, and also where you were really proud of your own musicianship on those songs too?
Mm. So actually, I personally didn't put that much input into the songs. Actually, I think the only thing I touched was the start of the solo in Soul Stealer.
Mm,
There is this break before the solo starts, and Oliver had done another part for it, and I said, well, let's do it that way. Change this and this, and that actually got the version that is on the CD. Um, for everything else, I really didn't have musical influence on the songs, except my bass part, because I had to come up with that. But that's mostly just the root notes of the guitars, well, at least a bit of that, because it's just fitting for the songs. And
yeah,
but touching on the songs that I like the most, actually, I think that must be. It's hard because I like all of them.
yeah, appreciate that.
Um,
Put you on the spot a bit.
it must be Legacy of the Sword and Ad Victoriam for me right now.
Mm,
My music taste actually changes from time to time, and
mm,
it's funny because I actually hated both songs before they had vocals. I
really?
really did not like them because I didn't think that they were good or would come out great. And once we started adding vocals, I was like, "Fuck, this is great!"
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny because now they are my favorites. And actually, I do use my earpods when going to the gym, and I just thought to myself one day, okay, just let's try to make sports to my music. And I put on our CD, and I found actually that Legacy, Ad Victoriam, and Soul Stealer are one of the best songs to like do chin-ups to, because
Ooh,
they have that raw power, and it's really
yeah.
really good for sports. I found for myself, must not be the same
Ooh,
for each other. Berserk would also work very very well, but for me the problem is that there's this drum intro which I like, but it's not that cool if you want to train and you have to go through that intro to get to the song.
yeah.
But yeah, I, at the end, I like all of the songs, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying about training as well, because even that with music, it's can sometimes depend what mood you're in when you're at the gym as well, and what particularly fits one routine that you're doing. My taste when it's kind of I have, if you like, gym music, which can be very different to what I'd listen to, because sometimes I think, right, can this motivate us? Is this going to get me, you know, focus? Is this inspiring? So it'll be some, oh, I'm going to upset people here, non-metal I'll listen to
mm,
when I'm working out for that reason, or then can have a particularly mixed playlist of, you know, say punk, hardcore, metal, and some other music for that reason. I did, and I mentioned this earlier, no surprise. Legacy of the Sword, I think, is a great album, a great fitting for the EP, the title track. Ad Victorium, I enjoyed that one as well. Not all songs, but I really liked Railgunner and Soul Stealer. And I'm just the same as you. It's, you know, if someone asks, you know, when people say, oh, what's your favorite band or what you're listening to? And depending on when they ask me, the answer I could give you, say, this month will be completely different to next month. Always
absolutely.
like that. I'm like, it depends what mood I'm in, and they'll say, for example, right, say I'm listening to like prog metal this month and then say industrial the next month, and we say, well, you like a lot of extreme as well, and I say, well, yeah, but I do like other genres and other music as well. I appreciate it all and enjoy it all, and it changes all the time. What I'm listening to this month, as I just said, be completely different the next. I have no idea. It's just all on the mood. I could go through a doom and sludge phase, for example. That'll be that month, or then come back to something more melodic and prog the next, or harsh, whatever it's. I have no idea.
Yeah, I actually have the same thing. I
Mm,
absolutely love Dragon Force, for example,
the
but
time works amazing.
there's just times where I cannot stand the songs. I just
Mm,
don't. I'm not in the mood, and there are other days where I'm just in the mood to only listen to Dragon Force.
mm,
And I mean, I probably know every song by heart completely, but at some days I just cannot listen to them, and others I just
yeah,
cannot not listen. It's crazy,
yeah,
and it's with that with other bands too. And I think that's I think it's important to not only listen to the same music day to day. You have to switch it
yeah.
up because else just gets boring.
It does. It does. And I think that's when I can't remember who it was. We were having a conversation about this on the show, and it was very recently. We were on about how some bands can stay stagnant, play the same, like make the same album over and over, and play the same style, and possibly. I think it was the Medea Project who mentioned this. Shout out to them. Yeah, it was, and they were saying, it's nice as musicians, to experiment, to bring in some other styles, as long as there's that like core essence where it could be different, but it's that band, it's that artist.
Mm.
If it gets totally away from it, then yes, you may as well then just have a different band name for that album because it's so drastically different. You can't hear the
Yeah,
essence of what made that band. And I
yeah.
can see you wanting to jump in with a point, so I'll give you the floor.
Yeah. So actually,
Yeah.
I think touching on that, we're preparing another album in the
Hey.
meantime. I mean, as I said earlier, tracking the stuff just takes time, and
Yeah.
we're currently in the phase where we are preparing the songs, and I think that we're kind of also mixing up stuff. So we are staying in the same genre. We are
Yeah.
staying on our heavy cruise. We still do heavy metal and traditional heavy metal, and it will be in the same like priest style thing, but we'll of course do songs that sound distinctively different from the songs that on here, because we do not want to end like Manowar, where every album sounds the same,
Yeah. Yeah. I
which
know what
is
you
not
mean.
bad, but it
Yeah.
can become bad because it becomes boring. And
Yeah.
I can tell you there are a few songs which we are preparing right now, which are going to be really, really great. Actually, there's a song which is so fast we actually have trouble playing it correctly. So we
It's like a
actually need to,
workout for you then.
yeah, it's extremely fast, and yeah, actually our drummer goes like, shall we play it again? And we are all like, no, our fingers can do it. And he says like, my feet also not. So it's very fast on the double bass, and it's like a little bit faster after Soul Stealer. And at some point in rehearsal, we said, okay, let's play Soul Stealer, and then let's play this other song after it. And the drummer was just like, no. It's a great song, but
Yeah.
he really needs to take a breath between
Yeah. Yeah.
two
Yeah.
fast ones.
Yeah.
So because it's really insane. But as soon as that's recorded, it's just gonna be insane, that thing. And we also have another few songs which are really catchy. And yeah, actually we're trying. We cannot promise right now because not everything is not finished.
Yeah.
But we'll try to do a longer album next time, because this time we just said, okay, let's do like 6 tracks, and on the CD there's a bonus track in German, which is more like a punk thing, which we can touch on later. And we said like, okay, let's do it to get it done and put something out, because we didn't put something out since 2017, and
Yeah.
we changed our style, we got heavier, and we wanted to have a new release, but we didn't have the budget to mix more songs than 6 actually, and we wanted to get things done. And the next one is probably going to have around 10 tracks or something. At least
Nice.
we plan it. I cannot guarantee, but we more or less agreed that we'll try to accomplish that. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool, man. But if you think as well, it's better to. I know you. I know you're saying, look, like the EP, it's only 6 songs. But it's better to have those 6 songs of quality than say, with some artists still release say 10, 15 songs and only half that album's good and the rest has just been added on just to make up the space.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And that's not our plan, yeah. We actually, before we set to release this record as a 6-song record, we actually planned to produce these 6 songs and then release one song after another for a period of like a year or something. So we would have to put something out every 2 months. And we decided against that because, for one, in today's fast-paced social media, it's probably the right thing to do because then you have something to talk about every few weeks. But on the other hand, you don't have like a release that you can hand out to people because I'm not going to do merchandise where I have to sell 6 CDs with just one fucking song on it. Nobody's gonna buy it for one.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's just too expensive. It's gotten really expensive to do these jewel cases. It's like you have to print that stuff, you have to do a booklet, you have to get artwork done. It's extremely expensive, at least for us who do it in our spare time. And so we wanted to go the traditional route because we figured, okay, we do traditional music, so we're going to do a traditional format. And we actually tried to do a vinyl, so for the old record players.
Very expensive.
But yeah, we tried, but I think producing those was so expensive that we would probably pay like 50 euros for production of one vinyl, and then we would have to sell it. And like we usually don't have that much markup. We like make cents on a CD. Because we're doing it as a hobby, we're happy if we get done with like a small minus on our bank account. We do not want to get rich with the music. I mean, we would take the money if someone.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
But we do it for the passion of the music.
Yeah, right reason.
In the first place, so we would still have to sell that vinyl for like 55 or 60 euros, and nobody would buy that. And still that 50 euro price per vinyl would be if we would take like 10 or 20 or 30 vinyls, which would come out to like $1,000 or $1,500. And we didn't have the money to produce those. And we've had a lot of people ask us, hey, do you have vinyl? It's so great. And not now, but maybe for the next one if we have enough money. It comes down to that,
Yeah, a lot of bands have mentioned vinyl on the show as well. Same reasons how it has become an extension of the merchandise now, as like a revered art piece. Some people will, I've said this on many shows. They'll put the vinyl on the wall like a picture, but because of the global demand in it now, it is so expensive. And I can't remember who this was. It was one band back on one of the very early episodes said they did a vinyl edition of their album, and I think they put a bonus track on the vinyl edition, and they said to me it was so expensive. They said just to try and get the vinyl made and then the artwork on top of that as well, which even increased the cost. They said it was absolutely insane. And you can take the CDs with you anywhere. Also, what's good with Bandcamp, and back to that, some bands do this as well. They'll release a succession of singles digitally, and then the CD will come later as well. So I think that's quite a cool way that can be done as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there was kind of like a punk bonus track for the German release. So I just wondered, you must be all, I'm guessing, like some punk music as well, or did you just want to think, hey,
no, actually not.
Track?
We are all metalers by heart, and I mean, I do listen to Ramones from time to time, but I do not consider myself or any of the others being a huge punk fan. But actually, it comes down to that. In a rehearsal room, we are just basically friends, and we just fuck around.
Just what comes
try
out.
out stuff and do funny things. And at some point, I think Oliver came up with this punk riff, and he just shouted "Dosenbier" in the room, and which is like a canned beer in English, I'd say. And it was just so funny. And then we played it more often. And at some point, we actually recorded one rehearsal and we had it on there. And it was just so funny that we said, okay, our audience is probably mostly German. It would be fun to put it on the CD. Let's just do a bonus track and have it there.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so actually some reviewers didn't get it right because for others watching this as context, if you are in a band and you send out reviews to people to write text about it, you send them like a document telling them everything about the band and about the album and stuff, and then you send them the MP3 files or WAV files so they can listen to the album. And I didn't label the last song correctly as a bonus track, and they thought it was on the CD. And I think there was one or two reviewers who actually took points from our score because they hated the last track because it was not metal but punk. And it since it was meant as a joke and as a bonus track, and one reviewer actually said, would this have been a bonus track, I would not have subtracted the score. So that was the point where I updated our press kit and specifically added bonus track to that.
Yeah.
So it would be clear. So yeah, it was just us fucking around. We sometimes do like a quick punk thing. We sometimes play our songs in twice or half the speed at rehearsals just to spice things up. We sometimes do jazz, maybe clean stuff, whatever, just because for us being in a band is not about let's play our songs and rehearse, but meet with the boys, have fun, do music, and whatever comes out of us. And I think this is an important thing in our band, that we have a strong friendship bond. And I think wouldn't we have this bond, we wouldn't be together and do music, because a lot of our music is just based on having fun and a good time.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. If it wasn't any fun, there'd be no point in doing it. The fun part then helps the chemistry. It helps the creation. It's like, I'm going to play this. Oh, that sounds good. I'll put this on that. The punk certainly gives it that vibe. Well, I can say this: if that had come to me and I didn't know it was a bonus track and they had the punk song, you'd have actually got more points, because I'm a huge hardcore and punk fan as well. And yes, I have that problem sometimes with metal friends. Be like, this is too punk, too hardcore for them, and then you get that from the hardcore punks. Listen, metal, it's too clean. I don't like this. This is too clean. It's not grimy enough. It's not dirty enough. And I'm like, man, I like it all. I like it all. I've got my favorites, but I like it all. And I really like. I was about to ask you about. You mentioned earlier about playing the music first, the riffs, and then the song titles and writing everything comes extra. I know you said, right, we'll get into that later, so we'll get into it now. But yeah, that is super interesting, because it's good that you all can naturally flow with each other. You've got that chemistry, your friends got that relationship there. And look, okay, you're a metal band, but as we've been talking about other music as well throughout the conversation, as you're still musicians, you are going to draw from whatever is going to pop into your mind there and then. Absolutely. From things you've heard which you may not even be conscious of. As you said, we're exposed to all this modern music, if you like, all the time. It's like a writer the same. A writer could write a novel and draw influence from something that they aren't even aware of, just because what is around them, and that will naturally flow. And the positive with that is it complements the music as well. Even if it's like, okay, we're playing jazz, we're not going to say make a jazz album, but hey, I like that bass line you did, I like that particular rhythm with the drums there, what you did, all that riff, right, let's take that bit out of it, put this in with metal, and see what we come up with for a song.
Mostly actually those things that we play around with don't necessarily end up in songs. It's just the Dosenbier thing was just an exception, I'd say.
Sounds fun though.
As proper Germans, we all love a good beer.
Yeah, I know you like your beer over there.
And so the song Dosenbier is actually an homage to beer. I think actually a line in the song says, okay, it's behind the CD. Yeah, we printed all the lyrics in the booklet, but the lyrics for Dosenbier we put in the inlay behind the disc in a very small font.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like I forget the words, but it's just like the song boils down in context to I love beer.
I know I'm going to get the words wrong from my limited German Mail. I'm trying to think of what was it that's just popped into my head now. Immer and bitter beer as well.
Yeah.
But no, that's
zylinderförmig Hopfengold geliebtes Dosenbier. It was, and it's like cylindric. I don't know what Hopfen means in English. Like Hopfen is one of the ingredients in the German Reinheitsgebot, which is basically said you're only allowed to do like water, malt, and hops. I think it's hops in English. It's basically I love beer. And the plot is about Oliver getting home after stressful work. He's a teacher. After stressful work at school, going to the fridge and taking out a cold one, and that's the plot. And I think it's fitting that this is a punk song, because punk is often just about drinking beer. And,
it's that like raucousness and fun with it, and those. There can be good songs to warm up with just for playing as well. Hey, we're not particularly going to come up with a song today. We're just going to kind of just jam, see what we come out with as well.
Yep.
There can be fun party tracks to play in live as well. Some bands do that where, hey, it's not particularly one of our songs. We're just going to play a cover or fun track just for something to freshen it up or get the audience partying around again. And all of that stuff's cool, man. And again, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And I think
we actually had a show which I think it was 1.5 hours, and we played like everything from our set except the one ballad that we have from our previous album, which we didn't play in such a long time. We probably couldn't pull it off, and we only had Dosenbier left as a song, and the people wanted one more song, even though they already got 2 more songs. And so we said, okay, we don't have anything else, take Dosenbier and leave. But it was great. It was absolutely great. They loved it. Some people were like, what's that? But most people just enjoyed it, danced a bit, and then it was done, because the song is like 1 minute short, and it's done. But it was great as a closing one.
I think that could be one of your signature party songs, and I think that would be appreciated by people even outside of Germany as well, because it's a good fun track. They'll know what it's about. I think that'll be one you could do with audiences everywhere.
Yeah, we actually thought about so originally we planned on putting this as a bonus track on the CD, and then putting it on Spotify into the album like half a year later. We just noticed that we cannot do it because Spotify only allows changing songs but not adding songs to albums. So we're thinking about maybe adding it, but not final, because my girlfriends all love this song and say, like, put it out there. I'm going to love it.
Sounds fun. It does.
Just as a meme song, it would probably work out. But the thing is, if you put out a single on Spotify, it costs money. You have to go to a distributor to get it there, and I think like singles are like €9. And it's not a huge amount, but we're not sure if we're going to invest it. But maybe we'll put it out. We'll see. But I think it would be fun,
Yeah, it'd be fun. You could do a fun video with that as well, which, if you think about it, it could just literally be you all acting silly in the rehearsal room with beer in your hands, whatever. You didn't even have to put a high cost into that. It would flow,
We actually did that while recording the song, because there's a group vocal shout where we all just shout Dosenbier, and we were all we didn't drink while tracking it, but we tried to act drunk, and so we had a drummer shout Dosenbier just like half later, so a few seconds after us, and it was if you hear the isolated group vocal track, it's just hilarious. It's just extremely great.
It sounds it, man. I like silly things like that as well at times. Those fun songs, as I said, gets people going. It's just nice. It's just nice to have some of that, like we said, fun. Just something So I know you have. I think I saw this earlier on one of your sites. You do have some. You have some shows coming up, I believe. Did I
Now we
read that
do
right?
not anymore. We had because we were
Right.
on the road like the past 4 weeks. We
That.
had our belated CD release party like 4 weeks ago, together with our friends of Sick Desire, who also
Yeah.
just released a new CD. They're more like a 80s hair metal band. So if you dig something like Steel Panther or Quiet Riot or whatever, check them out. They're on Spotify. I think they also self-produced the album, and it's relatively rough sounding. It's fine. You can listen to it,
Yeah.
but I think it has also this edge of doing stuff themselves. It's not bad, but it has this edge that you can identify
Yeah.
the songs. So we had that party with them. It was like in Osnabrück, our hometown, and it was a very hot and wet day. I think we had like humidity around 70%. It was extremely bad.
Oh, that
It had
sounds so
rained.
delightful.
Yeah, it had rained that morning, and then the sun came out, and it was like 35 degrees outside, and
Yeah.
like all the rain that was on the ground just evaporated and made the air extremely wet. And then we had to get on the stage, and they didn't have LED lights, but they had that old big cans, which really dissipate a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had a lot of shows where I really had got very sweaty, but that was the first show where I dripped. Literally, there was the floor was wet around us. It was really bad. We had a great time. It was extremely cool. But after the show, I had to get outside because it was so fucking hot in that venue,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is good. It makes for good fun, but it was unbearable. Then we were at a small festival, which is more like a private party, I'd say. Those were people who wanted to go to Wacken in 2020, but it didn't happen because of Corona. And then they decided, well, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. And they built like this giant bull head, which Wacken also has, but out of wood. They built a self-made flamethrower, so flames would get out of that thing. It's insane. It's a guy with a very large house and a large garden, and he has an old barn besides the house where they set up the stage. And it's like there are like 30 or 40 people, and they've done it for the past 4 years now. And like it's just a handful of people, but they give 200%. And those are the only shows where we get like a wall of death or a circle pit, because that's not that common for traditional heavy metal to have like a pit. But with those guys, it's just insane. And we actually didn't plan to play there this year, because we said like, all right, guys, we played for you the last 3 years. So we were like 2020, 21, and 22. We played there, and we said like, if you always book us, it's going to get boring. We were like, okay, just take another band. And then another band had to call in sick, and like one day before, they asked us, hey, can you jump in? And we all had time. Actually, half of us wanted to go there anyways, to have a party, and so we jumped in there. Then we were, the week after that, we were at a small festival where we were the backup band. So would any band be too late, or wouldn't be able to set up, we would jump in and play the slot, which didn't happen. But we were backstage. We got to hang out with other bands. It was nice. It was great for communication, and we had a great evening. And then last week, last week we were in Bochum, which is like 200 kilometers from us. And we had another very sweaty show, because it got once again really hot, and I think it also had rained, and it was in the basement. And
Oh.
they didn't have windows they could open, so
Oh
all the
man.
smog just condensed, and it was
Oh
like
man.
very thick air. And we really didn't exactly fit that evening, because it was mostly punk and hardcore, but the promoter really wanted to have us there.
Yeah.
So we did our normal show. We put everything we had in it, and there were some heavy metal maniacs there, but it was not like huge. Like we already had shows that were like relatively large. If I can continue on that, so we can talk a bit about the band and not touch on other topics.
Yeah. Of course.
In 2019, we had the opportunity to support the big thrash metal band Sacred Reich, if that's a
Yeah, I know them.
really nice guys. Those gigs were in this club, which I think I talked earlier about, where they just read the first 5 emails and then take one of the bands and
Yeah.
book them. And we had the luck that they asked some people they knew, hey, we have this band coming, we need a great opener for them. And one person said, take Tomb of Giants. They're great, they're fitting for them. And luckily they asked us. We came there, we played a show we played a show in a very, very packed venue. Sweat was dripping from the ceiling. It was even worse than the last hot shows we had this last 4 weeks. And it was just insane. And we did like an hour of set, and it was the crowd was great. We really got the crowd going. We had a great time on stage, even though the stage was very small, because in this club it's that way. When the main band has set up, there's just little space left on the stage, and you have to set up your own drum kit in front of that, so you basically cannot move. So that makes things hard, but we did pull off a great show, even though we couldn't really move on stage, which we normally do a lot. And after the fact, we got to hang out with Sacred Reich, and I can tell you, those are very, very nice guys. They had a lot of stories to share, and they're just genuine cool guys.
That's good to hear.
Just can recommend them. Also musically, they're just great.
Yeah,
I
they
really
are.
enjoyed their show, and it's fantastic.
Well, that sounds awesome, man. Definitely, we've been talking about authenticity with classic metal, so the sweat coming down off the ceilings is definitely authentic for sure from those venues. That one in the basement, though, that must have been horrendous because you'd have been packed there together, and then that heat's adding it even more. I've seen bands play in those kind of places as well, and I think it's bad for us there in the audience, and I think even worse for you guys playing in those conditions, especially if they've got sometimes the cheap lights and they're very warm, and they've got how they set the lights up and they're shining on the band. And I'm just thinking, man, that's just making it even worse. And it's almost like the band are being cooked on stage. You see them at the end, thanks for coming out.
That's why we have on our tech rider a line that says we need like 5 bottles of water with at least 1 liter on stage, because anyway, you have to drink a lot on stage. I mean, it breaks the show a bit because you have to turn around and drink a bit, but you would just die if you would.
Yeah, you would. Dehydration.
Those hot summer shows, you cannot get around that.
Yeah.
And actually, on that Sacred Reich show, I was completely wet after it. I switched my shirt and went into the audience, but in the audience it was also so hot because it was so packed.
Yeah,
I was completely sweated like 5 minutes later. So that wasn't the best idea I ever had, but it was a great evening for sure.
Hey, it says going to the gym that week, doesn't it? Literally lose half your body weight in there. So yeah.
Actually, I don't really sweat that much in the gym. I don't know if I don't train too hard, but I mostly do it so that my back doesn't hurt, because as a software developer, I'm mostly sitting like this in front of my screen all day. And training your back is really important. And I mean, yes, you can see my arms are not too big, but I'm working on that. But
Yeah, but it doesn't matter as long as you have the fitness there and help with a bit of your flexibility as well, especially being a musician. Flexibility in your arms and legs for sure, back for posture. And I mean, even in believe it or not, in some of the martial arts styles and grappling, if it's a guy that he can be really, really strong, but comes up against someone who's trained in grappling, knows what they're doing, a smaller guy, knows how to put the locks on and techniques. I've seen it done. You wouldn't believe it, but it happens. Of course, if that guy is trained, who's a big, huge guy, then it can be a bit different as well. But anything that helps just keeping, as you said, flexible, posture, bit of cardio as well, especially when you're playing live shows as a musician.
Cardio is a big thing because doing a show is like running a marathon.
It is,
because you're constantly moving, and while moving, you have to do relatively complex things with your hands. And all that while shaking your head like a maniac and running around the stage. And you're absolutely done after a show. At least for me, it's that way. So like when we have like an hour of a slot, it's fine. I can do it, but 1.5 hours is really hard because mostly with our size of band, you usually do like 45 minutes or 60 minutes of a slot. And if we get to do a headline show with like 1.5 hours, it's extremely challenging.
It is,
especially the last few minutes.
yeah, and also aside from just the movement, a lot of the posture, as you've been saying, when you've got your leg up on, whatever whatever's on the stage, and you're moving and posing like this, getting in different positions. So it just helps keep that little bit of flexibility, suppleness, stops the tendons and muscles getting so sore. Because I've heard this a lot from other friends who are musicians as well, that after a show, the next day, especially when they wake up, they feel absolutely drained and exhausted, like you said, like they've run a marathon. And I've said if they didn't do something, even swimming, just something just to keep that little bit of cardio there and suppleness as well. Said if not for that, they probably wouldn't be able to get out of the bed. And I thought, yeah, I can believe it, because it's the traveling as well. People think it's not just when you've done that show, then it's a travel involved on the road, the distances, and it all adds up, and it takes a hell of a lot out of performers.
And not only the traveling, the worst part of a show is actually you have to carry your stuff.
Yeah.
Like my bass end literally weighs over 50 kilos, and you always have to grab this fucking thing, go into this passage so you don't break your back, and more often than not, go upstairs with it.
Yeah.
And it's extremely hard, and then you have to put it in your car without breaking your back, and it's bad. And then usually I have to drive an hour or two back to home, and it's taxing, but at the same time it's fun. And I mean, we do it as a hobby because it's fun. And I mean, all this lodging around and driving far is just of course it's cost, because we have to pay for gas and stuff. But it's very rewarding, I'd say. It
is, and it's giving you those fun memories and those experiences as well. And like for if you come on the show again and can say, right, you'd done a tour where, and say, right, man, what happened on that tour? What was funny, whatever. So yeah, definitely. I know I've kept you here for a long time today, and I do appreciate you coming on to talk to me. I've really enjoyed it. I just want to give you the opportunity as well to shout out anything there for the fans and people in general. And if there's anything we may have forgot to cover with the band, if there's something we may have missed at all.
I think we had a very thorough conversation, and looking at the clock, I think we're on it for like 2 hours now.
Yeah.
Which is like the longest.
And you were worried about, oh man, I don't know what to talk about.
Which is like the longest interview I've like ever done in my life, I think. So yeah, a shout out. So if you like traditional heavy metal, listen to our stuff. We're on Spotify and every other streaming platform. Every stream helps us. Actually, we finally had like €5 per month for coming from Spotify, which is like a burger here. So
it's something.
If we have another few months that are good, like 4 or 5, then we can go get food with the band. If you want a physical CD, we offer worldwide shipping, even though it can get expensive, as I touched on. But we do it happily. So if you want to get a CD, just hop on Bandcamp and buy it. No problem. We also have t-shirts, patches, whatever. Just check out our store. The usual stuff. Instagram, whatever. Tomb of Giants, you can find us there. It would mean the world to us if you follow us. And then lastly, a few shout-outs. There are, of course, a few bands in our area who did a lot for us, and who I would recommend to check out, because they're just really great for different tastes, but mostly the same genre as us. For one, there's, of course, Sick Desire, which we did our dual release gig with, be it for us a bit delayed, like 3 months after we released our CD, but whatever. They do, 80s hair metal stuff. If you like that, it's great. Then there's Savage Blood, who also do relatively traditional heavy metal, and I think they just signed a record deal. So I think there's an album is coming out soon. I think in October or November. I'm not really sure, but really check those guys out. Those are great. Actually, you may know the singer from an older project, which was called Enola Gay, and I think this was
Yeah.
very big in Japan back then. I think it was in the 90s. Very, very great. Check them out, they're super good. Then another band is Power Game, which is more like a bit in the direction of power metal, which is also from our region, and we had the pleasure to play with them a few times. Very great. And if you're into death metal, I can only recommend Wild to you. It's like Wilt, also like wild, but with a
Yeah.
T. And they do a very great death metal thing.
Oh,
They're
check them out.
also very undergroundy. They're active on Bandcamp and everything,
Oh,
and they're just great. So actually, my car doesn't have a massage function in the seats. There's some expensive cars that have this, but I put a CD from them in my car, and suddenly the whole thing started to vibrate, and my back felt a lot better. So
hey, there you go.
if you want to upgrade your car with a massage function, get a Wild CD and.
They
Yeah, I
could put
think
that in the
those-
next album.
Yeah,
Put that as a tagline.
yeah. I think those were all of the shout outs.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there are a lot of people who touched us in our whole career because, like, our first things were like 10 years ago now, and we met a lot of people, met a lot of great people, and we're grateful for every single one of them. But I think that's about it for the evening, and I would leave the closing words to you guys.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. Before I butcher your language in a minute as well, I do want to send a shout out to Miss Mona. She just said I missed most of the live. Don't worry, this will be available to watch. It'll be on the channel. I'll put on all the links to Tomb of Giants in the description and try and remember everything that we covered as well. So you can watch it, share it around. Both of us do appreciate you coming through to support the show and check it out. That really is appreciated. I don't know if you're in a band yourself or if you know anybody who's in a band. If you are or know anybody, please send them my way, and I would talk to them or you yourself if you're in a band. Or if not, we still do appreciate you coming through and to support us. We really do value that here. So I want to thank everybody who's either watched us live or watches back later. It's greatly appreciated. I want to send a shout to Marcus. Thanks again for helping us connect. Really enjoyed meeting you, Daniel. I mean, we've talked a lot in email, but it's great to actually talk to you now as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hopefully get to see you in person one day. And yeah, you are welcome on this show anytime. I think we'll have no problem chatting. It was quite funny, folks. Before this, when we were bouncing back emails, it's like, what should we talk about? I'm going to talk about Holly's the show. And I'm like, dude, I think we're not going to have that problem at all.
No, it wasn't about that. I just wanted to have like a rough list of points we were touching on to prepare my English because I'm from Germany. I think I do a proper English, but it got a bit rusty, so I wanted a rough list on what topics we would talk about, so I could prepare some words.
Your English is excellent, man. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. I really need to get off my butt and practice those languages I'm learning, studying for, folks. The disclaimer is, because, and I was saying this to Daniel off here, because I'm in Gmail all the time trying to schedule guests, I'm hardly getting a chance to practice. But the downside is obviously you certainly don't practice languages, you start to forget. So it's a work in progress. I need to get back to finding that, especially with learning 4 as well. It's that's a whole headache of a whole other proportions. Anyway, going off topic again. So shout out to everybody again. Really appreciate it. I will be back later today. It's midnight UK time, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you're in the States, talking to a Canadian thrash band called Hyperia. I think they're called Hyperia, or is it Hyboria? Hyperia, yeah. So I shall see you later today. Thanks again for Daniel for coming on the show, doing a real good in-depth chat on the band and all the off-topic stuff we got into, and even our shared love of Opeth as well, which thoroughly enjoyed. And we'll see you on the next episode. It's time for awkward pause moments where, you know, I stop the stream and there's always that delay, so I'm gonna like go like this while it's stopping, folks. So in 3, 2, 1, let's do that. Here we go. Pause.